Imagine you've been pinned in a trench for 6 hours. Your best friend was killed this morning. One shot, no warning, no time to react. You never saw who fired it. You never heard them move. And you know, somewhere out there, they're still watching. Now imagine what you'd do if you caught him. Most people land on the same answer. Rage, grief. Men pushed past their limit. But that's not the dark part.
The dark part is that senior commanders knew it was happening, on every front, for years, and chose to look the other way. The reason they made that choice tells you something about how wars actually get fought, that no official history will come out and say. Here's something worth sitting with. By 1914, the rules were written down, signed by every major power. The Hague Conventions. Any soldier who surrenders gets protection. Feed him, shelter him, keep him alive. No exceptions.
Except there was one. Nobody put it in writing. Nobody gave an order. But within months of the first shots, one category of soldier had been quietly removed from that protection. Not by governments, not by generals, but by the men in the mud. And once it started, it didn't stop. The question isn't whether it happened. It's why every army on every front reached the same answer, on their own, inside the same few months. In quiet sectors of the Western Front, no offensives, no artillery, a single sniper could account for up to 30% of casualties in his stretch of the line. Not from a firefight. One man, one rifle. Men who never heard the shot coming.
Artillery killed around 60% of everyone who died in that war. But in post-war surveys, veterans named the sniper as the weapon they feared most. Not the guns, not the gas. The thing that killed the fewest broke men the most. That gap is what the rest of this story is about. It starts with how they worked. A machine gunner cut men down at 1,200 rounds a minute, and everyone knew where he was within seconds. Artillery fired from miles back, invisible, abstract. You never had a face for the shell. A sniper chose you, watched you eat, waited while you wrote a letter, let 3 men walk past, and took the 4th. Deliberately, personally, with patience measured in hours. There was a belief, not just anger, but something close to principle, that this wasn't honest fighting. Across British, American, German, and Russian accounts, veterans said the same thing in different languages. He didn't kill you in battle.
He hunted you, and you never had a chance. Ask yourself this. You've caught the man who spent 3 days picking off your friends, one at a time. Quiet moments. Your commanding officer is standing right there and looking somewhere else. What do? Now flip it. You're the commanding officer. You know a dead sniper stops shooting. What do? Same answer, both times. That's why it kept happening.
Captain Herbert McBride, Canadian marksman, Western Front, later wrote one of the least cleaned-up memoirs to come out of that war. Described what happened when his unit cornered a German sniper. The man had killed 11 soldiers in 4 days. Not in firefights, not in assaults. 11 men doing ordinary things. Eating, helping someone back to cover. When they caught him, he was 23. Photograph of his wife in his front pocket. He spoke some English. McBride wrote what happened next in one sentence, then never brought it up again for the rest of the book. The same thing played out on the Eastern Front, in the Pacific, in North Africa. Captured snipers almost never reached a POW camp. In practical terms, the survival rate was close to 0. These were men who'd watched friends drop. One shot, no warning, for days running. That kind of grief doesn't pause for the Geneva Convention. Here's the part that's harder to explain away.
Armies on all sides knew. Senior commanders knew captured snipers were being killed. They knew the rules were being broken, consistently, across multiple fronts for years.
Most of them said nothing. Because snipers were their problem too. One man with a rifle could pin down a whole unit for days. He went after officers, forward observers, radio operators, the people whose deaths did the most structural damage. The Zaitsev story is well known. 225 confirmed kills. Stalingrad, roughly 3 months. Most people who watch this channel have heard it. What usually gets left out? The Germans didn't just send a counter-sniper. They pulled the head of their Eastern Front sniper school, the man responsible for training hundreds of others, off that job and flew him to Stalingrad for one assignment.
Sit with that for a second. Not stop this sniper. We are pulling our chief instructor, halting his work with hundreds of trainees to deal with one man. That's how much a single rifle could bend the priorities of an entire army. So no, commanders weren't protecting captured snipers. Dead snipers stopped shooting, and that was the only thing that mattered. One more thing. Both wars generated detailed casualty records. Gas, roughly 1% of deaths. Snipers, a fraction of machine guns, a fraction of artillery. Statistically, almost nothing. And yet every army built counter-sniper programs, developed specialized camouflage, ran periscope drills, mounted fake heads above the trench line, literally designed to draw a shot and betray a position.
You don't build all of that around a weapon that barely shows up in the numbers. You build it because some threats aren't measured in bodies. They're measured in what happens to the men still breathing. There's a version of this where exhausted, grieving men explain everything. Where you say they were human, they'd been pushed too far, and you can understand it even if you don't approve. The fuller version doesn't go down as easy. Because it wasn't just grief. It was a system. Unwritten, unspoken, but it held. Where armies that had signed agreements protecting prisoners let those agreements quietly stop applying to one type of soldier.
The man with the bayonet charged you in the open. The machine gunner swept your whole line. The artillery crew never saw your face. The sniper watched you for hours. He knew which trench you slept in. He waited for the exact moment you felt safe. And that, more than the killing, is what no one could forgive. If you want to go further, what the job did to the men who did it, and why some of them couldn't carry it after the war ended, let us know below.